What's up everyone, it's Green Tea Sister. Today we're going to talk about the fear of marriage and the fear of commitment. Majority of the time, this topic is more relevant toward men. Fear of commitment, fear of marriage is maybe something that men struggle with a little bit more than women struggle with. And I really felt the need to talk about it because there are women who struggle with this. I'm going to be talking about what it is, where it most likely comes from, what you can do with it, just like have a coffee chat between you and I. I really struggled with the fear of marriage and the idea of commitment for the longest time. I feel like I really oscillated between having a desire of wanting to get married, but at the same time not wanting to get married out of fear. And I didn't really understand why I had such a strong fear toward commitment. Long-term committing to someone was never something that was really exciting for me. It was just something that I was so scared of. Getting older, I realized a lot of it had to do with my background. I didn't really have a good healthy example of a marriage. If you're someone who comes from similar background, your parents didn't have the best marriage, there's a lot of divorces in the family, or if you had an absent parent figure, you may be able to relate. Also, if you're someone who's hyper independent and you really love having your freedom, this may be one of the reasons why you also fear marriage. And we think that it's because we enjoy our freedom and it's because we're very independent people, and those are absolutely great qualities. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's just when we use those things as sort of a disguise to say, I don't want to get married, I don't want commitment because I'm so independent. If you really think about it, you can be married to someone and still be independent. You can learn to be interdependent. So if you're someone who says, I'm so independent and that's why I cannot imagine committing myself, that may be true, but maybe you should explore if there's any other reasons, if there's any other pain or trauma that you haven't processed or resolved. Also, it could come from fear of failing, fear of repeating the same mistakes that your parents made, or fear of repeating the same mistakes that you made. The first step will be you can learn to acknowledge these things as real pain and real struggle, right? Because the first step of healing comes from acknowledging it. If you just deny it and pretend it's not there, you're not actually doing anything, you're just burying it. When you have recycling, when you have trash, you actually have to throw it out. Just by moving location and bringing your trash with you, it's not going to get rid of it. So just because your relationship status changes from single to dating or dating to marriage, if you don't take care of your emotional baggage, you're going to carry it from one relationship status to another. They don't go away. And oftentimes, if you get married while still having a lot of baggages, it will just make it worse, because marriage is the most intimate relationship you can have with someone. You're going to be sort of bare naked in front of that person, right? You're going to show them everything about who you are, whether you like it or not. And the more baggage you have, the more difficult it will be, because now you have two baggages from two people. So it's just so much better to process these things while you are still single and not ignoring them, not neglecting them, not denying them, but just confronting your fear. And if you fear marriage, if you fear long-term commitment, bring it to God and He will definitely help you process those pain and process those trauma and emotions. But at the same time, you have to do your work yourself. I recommend going to therapy, talking about it with a professional. Relationship also requires skills and techniques. And especially if you come from broken family, dysfunctional family, you may not have the skills to do it well. I'm not saying you can't learn it. There are still people who do relationships really well, but it may just require you more practice, and you may have to learn these skills, right? Because just communicating, relating to someone, connecting with someone, listening, all of these require intentional time, energy, and skills. So going to therapy, getting input from the outside. And it's not to say you will ever reach a point where you're fully healed and completely good to go, you're perfect. But the first step to healing is to acknowledge that you have this fear. If you just don't acknowledge it, then you're not actually doing anything. You're just sweeping them under the rug, and you're not doing yourself any favor by ignoring them, because one way or another, they're going to ooze out in some shape or form. So the first step to healing is actually confronting your fears and just admitting that you struggle with it, admitting it, bring it before God vulnerably, going to a therapy. Or if you have really good friends, even 1 or 2 friends that you can be very vulnerable with and you trust them deeply, you can talk to them about this. They're not gonna use it against you. Just have discernment that you can trust this person, and you'll be surprised how much input, how much feedback that they can give you, how much encouragement they can give you in the healing journey. So I really encourage you to find 1 or 2 friends or family members that you can share about these things vulnerably without feeling shame or without feeling judgment. Just working through this, working toward growth so that you can have a more fruitful and healthy relationship in the future. Another tip, spending a lot of time with couples who are happily married. I wish I knew this sooner. A lot of our behaviors are learned behaviors. You can tell someone to do something, but modeling before people is so much more impactful than just telling people what to do. If you're a parent, you can tell your child, like, read your book, study, do your homework, all of these things. But if you're someone who doesn't read any books, then why would your child learn to pick up that as a habit? So especially if you didn't see, a lot of healthy relationships growing up, just surrounding yourself with couples, with relationships, married couples who really love each other would help you out a lot, because you'll pick up things that you didn't learn growing up. You'll pick up, oh, that's how we should communicate with each other. Oh, that's how they speak to each other. These are things that you need to learn as you grow old. And I'm not throwing shade at any one of my parents or anyone. I'm just saying, if you didn't have a very good example of a marriage, that's okay. Like, you don't have to be discouraged by that. It just means you're gonna have to pick up those skills, and you're gonna have to learn what healthy looks like. Surrounding yourself with people who are in happy, healthy relationship, who know how to deal with conflict in a healthy way, who know how to communicate in a healthy way. All of these things are things that you're going to absorb. All of these things are things that you can learn. Also, it's gonna involve not only learning, but a lot of unlearning in the process. Learning is one thing, but unlearning sometimes is just as hard as learning, right? Learning something new, you just gotta practice it. Unlearning, you actually gotta undo the programming in your brain and your mind, and then you gotta insert new information. So unlearning bad behaviors, unlearning toxic behaviors, unlearning certain perception that you had about marriage. What does a really healthy, good marriage even look like? How do you define it? How do people behave and interact, talk to each other respectfully? All of these things are work that you're gonna have to do. But I just want to encourage you, there is hope. It's never too late. It's never too late. Human brain is such a fascinating thing. We can learn new ways of thinking. Like, when you start thinking in a new way, our brain actually starts making new neural pathway, so that if you have certain way of thinking, if you have certain old pattern of thinking, let's say, for example, you thought marriage is terrible, I hate long-term commitment, that neural pathway is already developed, so your thoughts naturally gonna go in that direction. But if you start immersing yourself in exposing yourself to healthy relationship, learning about how to communicate, learning about how to deal with conflict in a healthy way, all of these things are going to form a completely new neural pathway in your brain, so that it would help you become a healthier person yourself. And when you're healthier yourself, when you are healing yourself, you can also recognize healthy person. You will have better discernment to tell who is a healthier individual and who's not. And this is not to judge people. Like, I'm not telling you should go out and judge, you're unhealthy, you're healthy, you're healed, you're not healed. Like, not in that sense, but it will just give you a better discernment of what kind of partner you really desire, and what kind of future relationship and marriage do you desire. And to also just give you more hope in that area. If you're someone who really struggled with this and feared commitment for whatever various reason that may be, I'm just saying this fear is something that can also be conquered, just like how psychologists work with people who have various phobias, like fear of rabbits. Something you can work through. It's not forever. Like, if you have fear of the ocean or fear of height, yes, the fear is very real, but you can work through these issues. You can still improve and you can still get better. So all of these trauma, fear, struggles that you have when it comes to fear of marriage and fear of commitment, you can break through it. I promise you, it gets better. So I really just wanted to have a heart-to-heart conversation. If you fear commitment, but you still have a desire for partnership, for marriage, God has that for you. That desire, it's not something that's random. If you're a believer, if you believe in God, God has given you that desire for a partnership. So you don't have to let fear get bigger than God's promise to you. You just have to trust that he actually does have good promise for you and not let the fear get the worst of you. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for today. Thanks for tuning in, and I will talk to you guys very soon. Bye!